Hey, what's up? It's Chris, and today I'm going to be showing you how I took the cover art for our new EP, Everything is Fine in Arcadia, and turned it into this cool 3D floating box sort of animation as a teaser. So let's get started. Okay, so firstly, I just want to say I had a lot of ideas for this project and ultimately settled on this one, mostly just because I felt it was the most feasible, the one that I felt like I could actually do. So I looked up a handful of ways on how I can turn our cover art into this sort of 3D box, game box like the EP cover art is based off of. And the first method is called crashing my entire laptop, also known as extrusion. So what that does is basically in After Effects, load it in, switch to an active camera so that I can look at this all over the place. Basically it turns this into like a 2D object in a 3D space, and then take this and basically destroy my computer's RAM by duplicating it a billion times. Here you can start to see we've gone from a 2D object to now a slightly 3D object. So if I take this and I control D that, you can see it starts to get thick. So the problem with this, first of all, is that I would have to do it a lot. You can tell how many fucking layers are right here. So the best that I could do with this, with the RAM that's on my laptop, is I could do like a CD case type thing, and that wasn't really the vibe I was going for. The other problem is you can see my laptop cannot fucking handle this, so this would have been a pain in the ass to work on. Another problem that you can kind of tell right off the bat is basically what it has to do is it has to duplicate the pixels on the very edge and just stretch them out. So even if I were to get this to the thickness that I originally wanted, the edges would just be this super weird, like stripy, stretched fucking design look right there. It looks shitty. Obviously, that was not really a solution to the problem here. So I basically figured if this makes it into a 3D space and I can move this on all angles, then I can basically just make the box myself and make it empty on the inside instead of making it thick. So we had recently played this show, Welcome to Arcadia, here in Columbus, Ohio, and I needed to make all the promotional graphics for that. What I ended up doing was I took the cover art, I took parts of the cover art, and then I used Photoshop's Content Aware Fill, which is actually a super useful tool. So if I just go with this right here, with this asset, I can turn this into the box edge. I figured that. Okay, so if I then select this box of empty space in here, basically I can use Content Aware to say, okay, fill this space with what you think would be in there based on these other surroundings. And it's going to take all the information on the screen and it's going to fill in what it thinks might exist in that space. So there it goes. It did a pretty good job. So I saved that and rotated that and got this. So I decided this would be the box edge. Like I like the little this here. It's got some streaks. It's obviously got this edge and whatever. It looks cool. I think it works as a box edge. So back into After Effects, we have this edge right here. So take that, make the edges just like that, and there you go. And so one issue that you can see with this whole method of creating the box like this is that the corners don't exactly line up, because even though it's a perfect square and it's the same sides every time, you imagine that it would perfectly line up, but it doesn't. And I was basically sitting here like detail tweaking, having it be a little bit overlapped and then a little bit shrunk in, and I couldn't get it perfect. But I ultimately decided that because this was sort of meant to look like an in-game item, a lot of times in-game items in these sort of like N64 or PS1 or PS2 graphic engine type games, those models were made in a very similar way. So very often you would see little tears and gaps and stuff like that in the model itself. So I figured that was actually, you know, a mistake that makes sense. I sort of use the same logic to rationalize when my video editor has rendering glitches, because it's like, we have a glitchy brand, so it's fine. And then even though it's not entirely necessary, in order for the sake of the green screen, I wanted the corners of the box to not get totally erased so that it would look like the box is completely hollow. So on the inside, I just have a copy of the box art slightly darker using a levels adjustment. And basically that makes it so that when you do see inside of the box like that, you are not seeing the background. You are seeing what could be inside the box. You're seeing like space inside the box. So the way I had to do this, because I don't know how to render with this black being an alpha channel, I had to basically create a green screen effect out of this. I know there is a way to render an MOV with transparency, but I didn't fucking care. Here you can see why that's important. If I pull this back a little bit just to emphasize the gap, obviously I would not have rendered it with that big of a gap, but let's say like that was like that, you can see like inside the box, like there's texture, you can see that it's there, you can tell that it's a 3D model of a box. If I were to get rid of that back panel, now this becomes empty, and then you would definitely be able to see as this was rotating, the chroma key would pull that, and that would be the background of whatever. So you could tell that this box was hollow. So even though you never actually see the back of the box, adding that extra detail of that back panel right there helps so much with just continuity of what you're looking at. So then basically we needed to get that like rotation around the box sort of thing. So what I learned, and this was my first time doing anything of this, is that basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a camera, and that is now our active camera. And this is basically when you render, this is what it will be. So at the moment I'm controlling the active camera. But instead of me controlling the active camera, I make it a parent to a null object. And then I poke that null object in here. As I come in here and I move this null object, it's basically the camera is going to stay focused on the null object. So technically, if you think about it, right, the box itself is not moving. The box itself is staying still within After Effects. What's happening is this virtual camera is staying focused on this null object, like one plane of the null object, and that null object is rotating around, you know, just spinning basically inside the center of the box. So what you see is this box spinning around in space, but what's actually happening is this null object is the face that the camera is pointed at, and it's moving around like this. But because we are the camera, it looks like the box is moving. So basically I took that and just rotated it and moved it around a little bit and made sure that my starting and ending keyframes were the same. So then you hit play on that, you get this nice rotation like that. It looks sweet. So as it rotates, you can tell right there, you can see inside the box like that. That would have been background had we not added that back panel. The worst of it comes when you can see the corner like that, is when it basically shows off this corner, sort of like plane separation like that. And it's fine. Ultimately, I don't think it's that big of a deal. That's our video. So I take that and I now chroma key out that green that I put behind it. And remember, the original video would have put black there. And had I now in this step chroma keyed out black, it would have pulled from the design itself. I just slapped it onto this cool like flying through grid motion graphic that I found online. So if we turn the effects on here, basically it just rotates the hue, and then it also adds a glow effect, and this glow effect is set to a certain threshold and a certain radius, so that's like the maximum glow effect. And then this intensity is actually audio reactive to the amplitude of the low end of the EP trailer that's behind it. The background here is audio reactive to when there is not bass playing. So I'll see if I can play this. So you can see I also then automated the background color as the track changes. Yeah, here. So as we get to the second track, the background is red, and if you've been following the project for a while on social media, that is actually technically a reference to this cool bike ad that we found that somehow lines up perfectly with this track that this is the visualizer for.
Bring it in style.
So the fact that this turns red is technically a very loose reference to that. Here, under transform, what we do is I add a scale basically to those same audio keyframes that's affecting the glow in the background. I'm using that to affect the scale of this. So basically this pumps with the bass. We have that. Now, another cool effect that I thought would be cool to be audio reactive is this glow effect. So if I turn this on, now you can see the whites and the brights of this design glow with the base now. So that's all my laptop is able to real-time render right now, so that's fine. The problem here that I felt was that it still just looks like two pieces of footage over top of each other. I have this effect called shift channels. The main reason why I wanted to use this effect was just so I could offset the red and the blue channel a little bit, because if you see here on these grids, on these sort of grid walls that we're flying through, the channels are offset a little bit. We have the green, and then here we have the red. Those combine to make yellow, and then here I have the blue. So those together make essentially the whites. All of these come together. It still has this like holographic look, which I thought was really cool, but I thought it was a little too holographic. What I did there is I added another blue channel underneath, and this blue channel is set to multiply, so it's going to multiply the blue values against this background here. And I take the red channel, and basically the red channel is on. The default here is 960, which is like perfectly right in the center of the screen. I just take that and I offset it a tiny bit, and that creates this cool like stereoscopic 3D effect. I wish I would have made the glow reactive to the high end, to like the treble and the high frequencies in the track. And the reason that I wish I had done this is because essentially the walls here now have a relationship with the box itself, which is not a bad thing, but when the bass is very quickly shooting up and going down, such as like in the builds where there's kicks or some other sections throughout the video if you watch it, basically you can tell the two things are interacting to the exact same thing, which gives them a sort of relationship that I don't necessarily want. That wasn't really intentional, but I don't think it was that bad, so I'm not worried about it. The third and final step is where I commit a sin against Adobe, and I edited this together with some other effects in Vegas, in Sony Vegas. We did a lot of work to fit these into that same sort of environment with the stereoscopic 3D adjustment and the sort of holographic look and the glow and everything. I just thought it would be nice to also add this sort of VHS overlay so that you have some sort of effect that is affecting both at the same time. The overlay was gluing these two elements together really, really well, but it made the text stand out really, really bad. I essentially just made a stereoscopic layer for that. And now this blends in super, super well, and it has a sort of like blue glow about it, which I think was really cool. It's got this sort of blurriness to it because of the channels being a little bit offset. Obviously we needed a transition from the intro and outro so that you knew it was us, so I needed to make sure our logo made it in. I then also have these disappear at different rates so that you get that sort of blue fade at the end, so it's like the white is gone but it leaves this sort of trail behind it, and I thought that looked really, really cool and reminiscent of that kind of technology. And another secret little tidbit that I added in here for extra detail is this clip. The opening track entering the game, we had the drop for it. We had the first drop for it, but we couldn't quite figure out a second drop. And so we started taking a small obsession with this AI called Jukebox AI, where basically you feed it some audio and then it tries to basically recreate what it thinks comes next. We put in the first drop of our EP into it, and it basically tried to recreate what it thought came next. As you can tell, the quality over time kind of degrades because it's basically reading off of itself, and it's already low quality. So as it goes on, it more and more starts to read off of that white noise and low audio quality and reproduce more of that as like a false accuracy folding in on itself. But it has this cool little ending bit. here in the beginning, that sort of jarble that you hear in the beginning, I considered just using like plain static, but I thought it would be cool to use this. The ending lines up perfectly with the audio of that, so it basically strings you along with this sample. And so as you can see, this was a more intensive multi-step process, than just rendering one thing together in After Effects. This was 2 different After Effects projects and a Vegas project to put all of this together. So yeah, that is how this project totally came together. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope maybe you have learned something, and I hope you stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching.